Out of nowhere, Makoto suddenly finds himself standing in a dark and unfamiliar space. Looking around in confusion, he wonders where he is and whether all of this is just a dream. As he examines the sacred stone in his hand, he notices it glowing with a strange color he has never seen before. At that moment, a black feather drifts down in front of him. He lifts his gaze and sees a woman floating in the air, her enormous black wings spread behind her. But before we get to that mysterious encounter, let's go back to where everything started. In a distant world, two powerful races ruled above all others, the demons and the divine spirits. For ages, these demons and the divine spirits fought a brutal war that devastated countless lands. But in the end, the demons emerged victorious against the divine spirits. And then, roughly around 10 years ago, the demons shifted their attention to the human world. Humanity stood no chance against them. One after another, demon armies poured through gates and pushed mankind toward extinction. Just when all hope seemed lost, the divine spirits appeared. They gave humans the courage to resist and shared their divine power with them. Through sacred stones, humans formed bonds with surviving spirits, allowing them to wield supernatural abilities. Those chosen individuals became known as hunters, and the fate of humanity soon rested on their shoulders. Now, 10 kilometers outside Tokyo, a group of hunters gathers in front of a glowing dungeon gate. E-rank hunter Hino informs the team that the gate has been identified as an E-rank dungeon and reminds everyone to inspect their equipment. Kamiya, another E-rank hunter, agrees and asks if everything is prepared. Mito confirms that all their gear is ready. The group then looks toward Makoto Asuka, an F-rank hunter responsible for carrying supplies, including extra equipment for emergencies. Makoto assures them that everything has been packed properly. Kamiya laughs and remarks that having Makoto around, who is an F-rank loser, definitely makes things easier, since they don't have to carry anything by themselves. Mito joins in, mocking Makoto by calling him a pretend hunter and telling him to leave the actual fighting to them. Used to hearing comments like that, Makoto remains silent. Normally, when someone is chosen by a divine spirit, a sacred stone appears in their hand. Through that stone, they form a pact with the spirit that answers their call. 2 years earlier, Makoto had received his own sacred stone. Believing his dream was finally coming true, he vowed to become stronger and make sure he never experienced another tragedy. That determination came from a painful memory. Years ago, during a gate break, demons killed his parents. The day he received the sacred stone, he felt hope for the first time since losing them. A year later, Makoto could be found training alone in a park. He repeatedly swung his sword, reaching 1,000 practice strikes within an hour. Satisfied with the session, he prepared for a 20-kilometer run. Nearby, a blond man noticed him and pointed him out to his companion. The dark-haired man immediately recognized Makoto and called him a fake hunter. The blond man then asked if it was true that no divine spirit had chosen him even after 2 years. The other man confirmed it, saying it's such a waste for a sacred stone to be received by such a loser, and that Makoto was now even more useless than an ordinary person. Makoto overheard every word but continued training without reacting. Later that night, he found himself thrown into a trash bin by a hunter who was tired of having to protect him during missions. Makoto argued that he could fight too, since he has been training with weapons. The man simply laughed, saying that without a divine spirit, Makoto's efforts meant nothing. He was told to stop pretending to be a hunter because it only embarrassed those who were truly qualified. After they left, Makoto remained alone in the cold beside the garbage. Once again, he questioned why his sacred stone had never responded. 2 years had passed, yet no spirit had formed a pact with him. Because of that, hunters rejected him, while ordinary people looked down on him as well. Returning to the present, the team enters the dungeon. Inside, monsters are quickly burned to ashes by Hino's lower-ranked divine spirit, Flame. As Hino notices one demon escaping, he shouts a warning. A powerful wind arrow suddenly flies across the battlefield and strikes the fleeing creature. The attack comes from Mito's spirit. Oh. Meanwhile, Kamiya fights alongside his own spirit, Fall. Before long, every demon in the area has been eliminated. Mito comments on how easy the dungeon turned out to be. Hino laughs and says it proves how much stronger they've become. Suddenly, Hino spots a demon sneaking up behind Makoto. He immediately warns him. Makoto reacts just in time and dodges the attack. Reminding himself that he is also a hunter, he rushes forward and swings his sword. Confidently, he declares that he will defeat the monster himself. His blade lands cleanly. Unfortunately, it does absolutely nothing. The demon mocks him, casually grabbing the sword and lifting it aside. At that moment, Makoto is reminded of the painful truth. Without divine power, his attacks are meaningless. The demon grabs his weapon tightly with his one hand and prepares to finish him with the other. But before it can, Hino steps in and incinerates the creature with a blast of flames. Afterward, Hino asks if Makoto is all right. Embarrassed, Makoto apologizes and thanks him. Hino pats his shoulder and tells him not to worry, adding that his movements were impressive. Surprised, Makoto explains that he trains every single day, so he will be ready when his spirit finally appears. Hino says he hopes that day comes soon. Makoto thanks him, though he believes the encouragement is nothing more than sympathy. Soon the group reaches the deepest chamber of the dungeon. Hino explains that the boss is waiting beyond the next gate. Then he tells Makoto whether he knows that there are many type and characteristics of demons, and some of them even have unique routines. Makoto answers that he has heard about it, and he has even heard that some demons can be defeated by understanding those unique routines. Hino smiles and raises his hand, telling him exactly, and just then, without any warning, he suddenly grabs Makoto. At the same time, Mito points an arrow directly at him. Caught completely off guard, Makoto struggles but cannot escape. Hino opens the gate and calmly explains that, for example, there are certain demons that have a routine of falling asleep after feeding. Before Makoto can understand what is happening, Kamiya kicks him into the boss room. Calling him bait, Kamiya says he can serve as food, and Mito even casually says she'll leave the rest to Makoto. Makoto desperately begs them to stop and save him. However, Hino only laughs, telling Makoto that someone like him who is incapable of forming a pact never had any future as a hunter. To Hino, this is the perfect ending for a fraud, as he tells Makoto that this is a fitting end for him. The gate slams shut. Makoto pounds against it and demands they let him out. Only then does he realize the truth. They had planned to betray him from the start. A deep growl suddenly echoes through the chamber. Slowly turning around, Makoto comes face to face with the dungeon boss, an E-rank behemoth. The enormous monster begins moving toward him. Fear takes hold as he stares at the creature in disbelief. The behemoth attacks. Makoto barely manages to dodge before running for his life. Meanwhile, outside the room, his former teammates laugh and relax as if nothing is happening, stating that he is dead for sure. Back inside, the behemoth briefly loses sight of him through the dust. Makoto desperately searches for an escape route. He knows defeating the boss is impossible, but he also knows that the monster has not fully awakened yet, so it's not at its full strength yet, giving him a slim chance to survive. Spotting a narrow opening, he sprints toward it. But before he can reach it, the behemoth roars. The entire dungeon shakes, the ceiling collapses, and falling debris seals the passage completely. Makoto stares at the blocked path in shock, since that was his only path of survival. The behemoth charges once more. Its claws tear through the ground as it races toward him. Frozen in place, Makoto can only watch its enormous jaws approach. Despair begins to consume him. He realizes he has accomplished nothing. He has not become stronger. He has not fulfilled his dreams. He has not even avenged his parents. And he absolutely cannot accept it that he is going to die right now at a place like this. Then something changes. The sacred stone in his hand suddenly erupts with dark energy, which complete surprises Makoto. The stone releases a massive wave of black light. A shadowy barrier forms around him. To Makoto's surprise, even the behemoth stops moving. The monster trembles in fear. Dark energy wraps around Makoto's body and pulls him away. In the blink of an eye, he appears somewhere else. Unsure whether he is dreaming or awake, he stares at the sacred stone glowing with an ominous new color. Then a woman with gigantic black wings appears before him. Extending her hand, she calls out to him, and with a calm voice, she asks a single question. "Will you form a pact with me?" Makoto stares at the winged woman in confusion. Without wasting any time, she tells him to hurry, explaining that the strange space around them won't remain stable for much longer. Standing directly before him, she asks once again whether he is willing to form a pact or not. Makoto pauses for a moment, asking himself, could this woman really be the divine spirit that had never answered him for the past 2 years? If that is the case, then his decision is already made. With determination in his eyes, he declares that he wants to form a pact with her and fight alongside her. As he reaches out, the woman accepts his hand and tells him that their pact is now complete. Dark energy immediately begins flowing from her body into the sacred stone. A strange sensation spreads throughout Makoto's entire body. It feels as though something is moving through him, and he quickly realizes that this must be what forming a pact feels like. The moment the connection is established, the mysterious dark space around them starts fading away. When Makoto opens his eyes again, he finds himself back inside the boss room, facing the behemoth once more. Tightening his grip on his sword, he announces that they are ready. The behemoth lets out a powerful growl that shakes the chamber. At the same time, Makoto notices something strange. The monster somehow feels even stronger than before. Still, when the behemoth rushes toward him, he prepares himself. He is no longer the powerless hunter he was a few moments ago. The giant beast lunges. Makoto instantly jumps aside. To his surprise, he lands much farther away than expected, using only a small amount of force. He stares at the distance in disbelief. This must be the strength granted by a divine spirit. Excitement begins building inside him. Raising his sword, he confidently announces that it's finally his turn to attack. Then he suddenly freezes. A problem immediately comes to mind. He has no idea what abilities his spirit actually possesses. Panic takes over. At that exact moment, the behemoth appears behind him. Makoto narrowly avoids the attack and quickly calls out to the spirit in his mind, asking what power she has given him. A voice responds. The answer catches him off guard. She casually admits that she forgot to explain it. Makoto nearly explodes in frustration and tells her to focus. The woman fires back like a typical tsundere, saying it's his fault because he never bothered asking. Makoto argues that now is definitely not the time for that conversation. Behind him, the behemoth's claws slam into the ground, shattering the floor. Thankfully, he manages to leap away before getting hit. Then he remembers the dark energy he saw earlier. He asks if that energy is connected to her ability. She confirms it. Immediately, dark shadows begin pouring out of the sacred stone. The woman explains that her power is known as Rebellion Shadow. It allows him to freely manipulate shadows. She also tells him that if he focuses properly, the usage of the ability will come naturally to him. Makoto closes his eyes and concentrates. A moment later, shadows gather around his hand. The darkness quickly takes shape and forms a long blade, a shadow sword. Seeing it materialize leaves him amazed. The woman explains that it is a shadow weapon, where his ability is to transform shadows into any weapon he desires. But for now, that's the limit of what he can do. A smile spreads across Makoto's face. Gripping the dark blade firmly, he thanks her. As far as he's concerned, this is more than enough power to fight. Turning toward the behemoth, he confidently taunts it. He asks if the monster has been patiently waiting for him and tells it that things won't go its way this time. The behemoth responds with a furious roar. Its massive tail swings through the air, smashing the ground as it charges forward. Makoto pulls his blade back and attacks. The two collide. In a single strike, his shadow sword slices cleanly through the behemoth's tail. The severed limb crashes to the ground. The monster immediately lets out a painful roar. As it glares at him with pure rage, something causes it to stop, because behind Makoto stands a gigantic shadowy figure with glowing eyes. The sight alone is enough to make the behemoth hesitate. Without giving it time to recover, Makoto rushes forward. Declaring that the fight isn't over yet, he swings for the creature's head. The behemoth manages to pull back at the last second and avoid the attack. Makoto quickly realizes that the monster has started learning his attack range. So, to counter this, he leaps high into the air. But the behemoth retreats, attempting to create distance. However, Makoto changes the shape of his weapon mid-air. The blade suddenly extends. With a long-range slash, he cuts into the monster's limbs. The behemoth screams in pain before collapsing. A wave of excitement runs through Makoto. His weapon can freely alter its shape. That realization opens countless possibilities. Looking down at the injured monster, he jumps forward once more. As he moves, memories flash through his mind. The insults, the mockery, the people who called him useless, the hunters who said he would never form a pact. Now standing here, he finally knows they were wrong. The shadow weapon shifts again. This time, it transforms into a massive cleaver. Makoto can feel that every bit of training and determination has led him to this moment. With all his strength, he swings downward. The enormous blade crashes through the behemoth. In one decisive attack, the monster is split in half. Its body falls heavily to the ground. Silence fills the room. Makoto simply stands there. For a moment, he can hardly believe what happened. The shadow weapon gradually disappears. His hands shake slightly as relief washes over him. After all this time, he has finally defeated a demon on his own. But exhausted from the battle, he suddenly drops to the floor. Looking at the sacred stone, he asks the woman if they can finally talk properly. Dark shadows rise from the stone. The woman appears before him once again. Makoto immediately thanks her. Without her help, he wouldn't have survived. She responds by saying that she only provided the power. The one who fought and won was him. Makoto disagrees. No matter what she says, he is grateful that she chose to form a pact with him. The woman quietly watches him with a stern and disgusting look on her face. Makoto then compliments her abilities. Because according to him, the power to control shadows is incredible. He assumes that such strength must belong to a high-ranking divine spirit. After all, together they managed to defeat an E-rank dungeon boss. That has to mean she's someone special. The woman remains silent for a moment. Then she finally reveals the truth. She is not a divine spirit. She is a demon. Confusion and shock runs through Makoto's mind as he stands there like an idiot. His mind struggles to process what he just heard. The woman who formed a pact with him is not a divine spirit. She's a demon. For years, demons have been humanity's greatest enemy. They destroyed countless divine spirits and pushed humans to the edge of extinction. That is why humans rely on divine spirits and become hunters in order to fight back. Still trying to understand the situation, Makoto asks her again if she truly is a demon and not a divine spirit. She grips her arms tightly, looking uneasy. Makoto notices her expression and asks for a proper explanation. Before she can answer, however, the large door to the boss room slowly opens. Voices immediately echo throughout the chamber. One of the hunters casually remarks that Makoto should already be dead by now. Mito confidently says that he is probably inside the behemoth's stomach already, but the moment they enter, all three of them freeze. Makoto is standing right in front of them, alive. Makoto instantly demands an explanation for what they did. Kamiya stares at him in disbelief and asks how he survived. Mito quickly asks where the dungeon boss went. Then, Hino suddenly realizes something. Makoto must have finally formed a pact. At once, Kamiya nervously asks Hino what they should do next. Hino curses under his breath. If Makoto reports their betrayal, their lives as hunters are over. So he tells them that they have no choice but to take him out themselves. Without hesitation, all three activate their divine powers. Makoto briefly looks away and asks the demon for her name. Caught off guard, she hesitates before introducing herself as Rinoa. Makoto nods and says that's enough for now. Then he asks for her strength once more. Surprised by his determination, Rinoa agrees. Dark shadows gather in his hand, forming a sword. Meanwhile, Hino tries to boost his teammates' confidence by mocking Makoto again, saying he is just a weak loser and it doesn't matter if he had formed a pact, and besides he probably don't even know how to use his power yet, since it's too early, and they should quickly finish him off. But suddenly, Hino's divine spirit, Flamme, interrupts him. The spirit asks if he seriously plans to fight that thing. Confused, Hino asks whether Flamme is afraid. Flamme immediately scolds him, calling him an idiot for failing to notice how abnormal Makoto's spirit is. Nearby, Mito's spirit, Oh, begins trembling. It admits that it has never felt anything like this before. At the same time, Kamiya's spirit, Fall, says that Makoto's pact exists on a completely different level. Kamiya can hardly believe what he's hearing. Now genuinely alarmed, Hino asks Flamme what kind of spirit Makoto formed a pact with. Flamme explains that it cannot identify her exactly, but one thing is obvious. She possesses the power of a top-class divine spirit. Everyone is left speechless, and Hino even exclaims that it's impossible. Makoto glances at Rinoa, trying to understand what that means, but turns out that divine spirits are divided into several categories: lower, middle, upper, and top class. Only a very small number ever reach the highest rank. Those spirits are considered the strongest among all divine beings. Curious, Makoto asks Rinoa who she really is. However, she points ahead and says there isn't time for explanations right now. Makoto immediately notices Hino preparing another attack. Flamme surrounds him in flames. Hino shouts that there's no way he can be weaker than someone he has always considered worthless. He convinces himself that Makoto only recently formed a pact, meaning he should still be inexperienced. After all, his first real battle was against the behemoth and he has never fought anything else. Mito hesitates for a moment. She admits that hunters do grow stronger by defeating demons, but there are still too many unknowns. Kamiya nervously adds that if Makoto truly possesses a top-class spirit, none of them stand a chance. Hino instantly snaps at them, calling them cowards. Then he launches himself straight toward Makoto. Flamme's fire surrounds his fist as he screams that he'll show Makoto the strength of a real hunter. His punch flies forward, but Makoto calmly sidesteps it. Hino attacks again, then again. One flaming punch after another. Makoto dodges every single one without difficulty. It almost looks effortless. Soon, Hino activates his skill, Flame Spirit Breath, and sends powerful flames directly at him. Makoto responds by swinging his shadow sword. The flames are instantly sliced apart. Everyone watching is left shocked. Makoto then taunts Hino, asking if that's all he has. The comment only makes Hino angrier. He yells at Makoto not to get arrogant and says he's only lucky because he happened to receive a powerful spirit. Makoto grits his teeth. He firmly denies it. This isn't luck, because unlike them, who was able to form a pact immediately after they received their sacred stone, he never gave up, no matter how long it took, even though it looks hopeless at times, but still he continued moving forward. That unyielding determination was the reason that brought him here, not some luck like he exclaims. However, Hino just gets enraged on hearing this, and he unleashes a massive amount of flames. He declares that he'll burn Makoto to ashes with his ultimate attack. Then he orders his teammates to join him, because if they fail now, their lives are over. Trembling with fear, Mito reluctantly agrees. Kamiya also joins despite his hesitation. Hino activates Flame Spirit's roar. Mito unleashes Grand Archer. Kamiya summons Thunder Spirit's Great Spear. The three attacks combine into one enormous explosion. The ground shakes violently as smoke and debris fill the entire room. When the dust settles, Mito nervously wonders if they overdid it. Hino simply laughs. To him, trash will always remain trash, but his expression instantly changes when Makoto is still standing there, completely unharmed. Calmly, he explains that he simply cut through all of their attacks. Compared to the behemoth, their speed is nothing impressive. Then he takes a step forward. He asks if they're finally ready to fight him properly. Hino freezes. For a brief moment, he sees Rinoa's overwhelming presence behind Makoto. Fear spreads across his face. Trying to suppress it, he gathers flames in his hand and warns Makoto not to underestimate him. He continuously launches fireballs while insulting him. Makoto bends low and smoothly dodges every attack while advancing. The distance between them closes rapidly. Hino panics. Before he can react, Makoto dismisses his shadow sword. Then he drives a powerful punch straight into Hino's stomach. The impact sends him flying backward. Blood pours from Hino's mouth as he crashes into the ground. Makoto stares down at him and firmly says only one thing. He is a hunter. Hino lands beside his teammates before collapsing. Makoto coldly orders them to pick him up and leave. He also warns them never to speak about what happened there. Terrified, Mito and Kamiya immediately grab Hino and run away. Fear is written all over their faces. Once everything finally settles down, Makoto's sacred stone glows. Rinoa appears with a small smile. She admits that she never expected him to solve the situation by punching Hino. Makoto says there was no need to cut him down. Then he thanks her for helping him throughout the battle. Rinoa smiles warmly. Makoto suddenly remembers something important. Their conversation earlier was interrupted. He reminds her that she still owes him an explanation. Rinoa nods. Makoto then asks her once more to explain how she can be a demon instead of a divine spirit. With a serious expression, she tightens her hands together. Finally, she prepares to reveal the truth. Rinoa finally begins explaining her past. She reveals that she was originally a divine spirit from the angel race. However, after a certain incident, she fell from grace and eventually became a demon. Makoto listens in complete surprise. To him, the situation sounds unbelievable. Angels are considered top-tier divine spirits, so hearing that one of them transformed into a demon is something he never imagined possible. Rinoa continues by explaining why she was able to form a pact with him. Because she was once a divine spirit, creating a bond through a sacred stone is still possible for her. What she still cannot understand, though, is how her sacred stone ended up in Makoto's possession. Everything about their meeting feels strange and full of unanswered questions. After listening carefully, Makoto tells her that he understands her situation. Rinoa lowers her gaze. She admits that no matter how she tries to hide it, she can't change the fact that she is a demon. Then she quietly offers him a choice. If he feels uncomfortable, she is willing to end their pact. As she says those words, she unconsciously grips her arm and slightly trembles. Makoto notices immediately. Instead of reacting negatively, he lets out a small sigh and sits down beside her. Then he properly introduces himself. His name is Makoto Asuka. He is 18 years old and a hunter. Rinoa looks confused. She asks why he suddenly started introducing himself. Makoto simply smiles. He tells her that he already knows she is not a bad person, and because of that, he has no intention of ending their pact. For a moment, Rinoa is left speechless. Makoto adds that introducing himself is simply his way of showing that he wants to work together from now on. She stares at him in surprise before smiling softly. Calling him a strange human, she accepts his decision. Makoto smiles back and suggests they head home together. Meanwhile, somewhere within the demon realm, two demons observe everything from afar. One of them mocks Rinoa for betraying her own kind. The other laughs and says it does not really affect their plans anyway. The first demon smirks and comments that, at the very least, the situation is entertaining. Back in Tokyo, Makoto arrives at his apartment. He unlocks room 303 and switches on the lights. The apartment is simple and modest. Inside, there is only a bed, a table, and a few storage boxes. Makoto tells Rinoa that she can sit wherever she likes. She looks around the room before commenting that it is hard to believe humans live in places like this. Makoto asks if something is wrong. Rinoa calmly replies that it reminds her of caves in the demon realm, places that simply protect people from wind and rain. Makoto is surprised at her comparison, but he says that, at the end of the day, it is only a place to sleep. Then he asks if there is anything she likes. At first she looks confused. After thinking about it, she answers that she enjoys beautiful scenery. Makoto notices her staring out the window. An idea immediately comes to him. He suggests placing flowers there. Rinoa smiles and says that it sounds nice, even complimenting his sense of style. Makoto then proposes something else, stating every time they successfully clear a dungeon, they should buy a new flower together. That suggestion makes her smile even more. After the long day, Makoto starts feeling exhausted. He announces that he is going to sleep early. As he approaches the bed, Rinoa casually lies down on it as well. She comments that it feels small for two people. Makoto instantly turns red. Flustered, he asks if she seriously intends to sleep beside him. Rinoa innocently explains that in the angel realm, sharing beds is completely normal. Makoto then asks if divine spirits even need sleep. After thinking for a moment, she admits that they probably do not. So, he immediately tells her to return to the sacred stone instead. Rinoa agrees without complaint. After wishing him good night, she disappears back into the stone. Makoto quietly looks at it for a few seconds before lying down himself. His thoughts quickly become serious. If anyone discovers that he formed a pact with a demon, his life as a hunter will be over. Because of that, he decides that working alone for now is the safest option. He chooses an F-rank dungeon since it is the only type he can comfortably challenge by himself. The next day, he arrives at the Japanese Hunter Association. Rinoa remains hidden inside his glove. Makoto quietly asks if she feels any pressure. She says she is fine and compliments him for hiding the purple sacred stone since it would immediately attract unwanted attention. Makoto walks over to the reception desk and requests permission to enter an F-rank dungeon. Before the process is finished, the entire building suddenly becomes noisy. Everyone turns toward the entrance. Walking inside is the famous S-rank hunter Amagi Yugo. He casually strolls in while drinking alcohol as if it is a perfectly normal morning routine. Hunters immediately surround him and ask for autographs. Yugo simply laughs and comments that the place is lively as always. Then his eyes land on Makoto. Without hesitation, he walks straight toward him. Makoto instantly recognizes him and freezes. Yugo asks for his name and rank. Makoto briefly confirms that Yugo is indeed talking to him before introducing himself as Makoto Asuka, an F-rank hunter. Yugo tilts his head in confusion. He clearly finds that hard to believe that he is F-rank. Makoto asks if he needs something. Yugo casually replies that he does not. Before leaving, he politely apologizes to the receptionist for interrupting and smoothly suggests they have tea together sometime. The poor assistant is left completely speechless. As he walks away, Yugo glances back at Makoto and says that they will meet again. Meanwhile, the assistant is overwhelmed with excitement because an S-rank hunter spoke to her. Makoto simply stands there in confusion, wondering if one of Japan's strongest hunters just flirted with him. Eventually, he regains focus. He completes his registration, receives the dungeon coordinates, and leaves. Despite what just happened, he reminds himself to stay focused. This will be his very first solo dungeon clear. Even if it is only F rank, it is still an important step. After arriving at the location, he checks the coordinates one last time before entering the gate. As soon as he steps inside, something feels different. The atmosphere is heavier than normal. Rinoa asks whether F-rank demons are truly supposed to be the weakest. Makoto confirms that they are, before asking if she senses something unusual. Suddenly, something enormous charges directly at him. He reacts instantly. Summoning his shadow sword, he blocks the attack. However, the impact is unbelievably powerful and sends him flying backward. He crashes to the ground, but luckily avoids serious injuries. Rinoa immediately asks if he is all right. Makoto says he is fine, though he is still shocked, wondering who attacked them at such a terrifying speed. Then he finally sees his attacker, a chaos wolf. His eyes widen, because those creatures are D-rank demons, not F-rank. Rinoa calmly points out that this dungeon is clearly abnormal. Makoto slowly realizes something horrifying. He may have entered the wrong dungeon entirely. Makoto quickly looks around as a pack of wolves surrounds him from every direction. He glances toward the entrance and immediately notices something troubling. The gate is sealed shut. Rinoa comments that he already understands how dangerous the situation is. Makoto agrees, admitting that fighting all of them at the same time will not be easy. Trying to stay calm, he extends the length of his shadow sword. Meanwhile, Rinoa returns to the sacred stone so she will not distract him during the battle. Makoto takes a deep breath and tells himself that he can think about everything else later. Right now, his only priority is reducing their numbers. He immediately rushes toward one wolf, but before he can attack, another one leaps at him from behind. He quickly sidesteps. Then another claw suddenly comes at him from the side. Makoto bends forward just enough to avoid getting hit and instantly creates some distance. The wolves begin circling him once again. Watching them carefully, he realizes something. These aren't ordinary monsters. They're intelligent, they're coordinated, and that makes them far more troublesome. One wolf charged directly at him with its jaws wide open, while another attacks from the side. Makoto blocks the first one. Unfortunately, the second wolf slams into him and sends him crashing to the ground. Lying there for a moment, he quickly analyzes the situation, admitting that each one of them are really strong. Their timing is perfect, and they wait patiently for even the smallest mistake before attacking. Inside the sacred stone, Rinoa calmly observes everything. She tells him that she has an idea and advises him to pay close attention to their movements. As the wolves prepare to attack again, a risky plan suddenly forms in Makoto's mind. He does something unexpected. He deactivates his shadow weapon entirely. Rinoa immediately panics, because one wrong move could kill him instantly. The wolves see an opening and pounce together, but right before they reach him, Makoto reactivates his shadow sword. With one swift attack, he slices through one wolf and cuts down two others in the same motion. He stares at his weapon in surprise. Relief quickly follows. The plan actually worked, and he is glad that he managed to reactivate his ability just in time, otherwise he would have been dead. Rinoa appears beside him and praises his bold decision. He cleverly used his own weakness as bait. Makoto drops to the floor for a moment and grins. Honestly, he wasn't even sure it would succeed. Then Rinoa brings up another issue. The dungeon feels much stronger than it should. Makoto agrees. At this point, it's obvious. This isn't an F-rank dungeon. It's D-rank. Normally, this would be far beyond his abilities, but there is no turning back now, since he knows that the gate will only open after the boss is defeated. Just as they begin moving again, they both stop. Another group of wolves appears. Makoto's patience instantly disappears. He just finished fighting one pack, and now another one has shown up. It feels like the dungeon is endlessly spawning enemies. Rinoa returns to the sacred stone and tells him that now is a good time to try something new. She instructs him to raise his hand and then imagine shadow chains on his mind while targeting one of the wolf. Makoto follows her instructions. Dark chains suddenly burst out from the shadows and wrap around the wolf's body. Rinoa explains that this skill is called Shadow Bind. Its purpose is to restrain enemies. Excited, Makoto immediately pulls the trapped wolf closer and cuts it in half. Another wolf attacks from behind. He quickly activates Shadow Bind again. This time, he grabs the chain itself and swings the restrained wolf into the others. The remaining monsters scatter everywhere. Makoto can't help but laugh. He never expected this ability to be so fun and easy to use. Rinoa praises him, saying he is really good at using this new ability, but also gives him a warning. Shadowbind consumes magical energy very quickly. Makoto nods in understanding. Still, he knows this new skill will make progressing much easier. After what feels like an endless battle, Makoto finally stops. He plants his shadow sword into the ground and lets out a long breath. All around him are piles of defeated wolves. Surprisingly, he is not even that exhausted. Rinoa reminds him that hunters become stronger by defeating demons. His improved endurance is proof that he is growing. Makoto looks down at his own hands. A sense of pride fills him. He can actually feel himself getting stronger. After a short break, he signals to Rinoa that it's time to continue. As they head deeper into the dungeon, she quietly observes him. She is impressed by how quickly he adapts. His instincts are sharp. He thinks fast under pressure, and despite the risks, he is willing to act decisively. All of it shows just how much potential he has. Eventually, they arrive at the deepest section of the dungeon. A massive gate stands before them. Makoto pauses for a moment. His heartbeat begins to speed up. Rinoa appears beside him and asks if something is wrong. He honestly admits that he is nervous and sacred of the D-rank boss. But this is the hunter's duty and is what being a hunter is all about. But also at the same time, he is also excited because he can finally prove his strength as a real hunter by conquering this dungeon. Rinoa reminds him that this is only the beginning of his journey. Makoto nods, and he tightly grips his hand, saying, "That's right, this isn't the end. To become a hunter who can save the world, he will need to make it back alive." With that strong determination of surviving, he places his hand on the giant gate and slowly pushes it open. Without hesitation, he steps inside and closes the door behind him. The atmosphere instantly changes. He lifts his head and sees the dungeon boss waiting before him, a gigantic hell scorpion, and now it is ready to test his strength. The giant hell scorpion immediately reacts to Makoto's presence. Its massive stinger rises into the air as it lets out an angry growl, causing the atmosphere inside the room to become even heavier. Makoto cannot help but tremble at the sight before him. Its armor shines like solid minerals, making him wonder if it is even tougher than steel itself. Rinoa senses his fear and asks if he is scared. Makoto quickly denies it, saying that he is simply experiencing normal pre-battle nerves. Before he can think any further, the hell scorpion suddenly attacks. Its tail slams into the ground with incredible force, creating a huge crater exactly where Makoto had been standing moments earlier. He barely dodges in time. At that moment, he realizes just how dangerous this boss really is. Its attacks are both fast and accurate. One direct hit would be enough to finish him. Suddenly, one of its giant claws shoots toward him. Makoto quickly raises his shadow sword and blocks the attack. Using the opportunity, he leaps onto the creature's arm and slashes downward. To his surprise, nothing happens. His blade leaves absolutely no damage behind. That immediately confirms his suspicion. Its armor is incredibly durable. The hell scorpion twists around in anger. Makoto quickly jumps back to create some distance. Instead of attacking recklessly, he decides to observe its movements. Even the strongest defenses must have a weak spot somewhere. Meanwhile, Rinoa silently watches from within the sacred stone. Makoto continues attacking different areas. He targets the arms, then the tail. Still, nothing works. Gathering all his strength, he aims for its head. Even then, he fails to leave a single mark. The hell scorpion roars loudly. A powerful shockwave spreads throughout the room, forcing Makoto to cover his ears as the vibrations tear through the air. Then the monster reveals another ability. Its tail suddenly changes, producing numerous crystal spikes. Without hesitation, it launches them toward him like projectiles. Makoto immediately sprints backward. Some of the spikes barely graze his body. He stares at the creature in disbelief. As if its armor was not already troublesome enough, it also has long-range attacks. Realizing he needs help, Makoto calls out to Rinoa for advice. She calmly tells him that defeating the monster in his current state will be extremely difficult. If he wants to win, he will have to surpass his own limits. Before he can respond, the hell scorpion charges again. Thinking quickly, Makoto activates Shadowbind. Dark chains wrap around its arms. Using that opening, he slams the giant creature into a nearby wall hard enough to shake the entire cave. He exhales in relief. If that attack had connected with him instead, the fight would already be over. As the monster turns around, Makoto notices something. There is a small crack on its head. Suddenly, an idea clicks in his mind. Maybe slicing attacks are not the answer. Maybe blunt force is the key. The hell scorpion roars once more and rushes at him with even greater aggression. Makoto dodges while rapidly thinking through his options. He briefly considers increasing the size of his sword. Then he immediately dismisses the idea. A larger blade still will not solve the problem. At that moment, Rinoa calls out to him. She reminds him about the very first time he used his shadow weapon. The hint is all he needs. Memories of his battle against the behemoth instantly return. A smile slowly appears on his face. At that exact moment, the hell scorpion lunges at him with both claws raised. Makoto jumps high into the air. Rinoa quickly warns him that dodging will become difficult once he is airborne. Just then, the monster fires another wave of crystal spikes toward him. Instead of retreating, Makoto makes a bold decision. He activates Shadowbind once more. Dark chains wrap around the hell scorpion's body. Using the chains, he pulls himself closer while pushing through the incoming barrage. Covering his head from the attacks, he moves forward. Then, while still in midair, his shadow sword transforms. This time, it becomes a gigantic hammer. With all his strength, he swings downward. The powerful impact crashes directly onto the Hell Scorpion's head. The entire cave echoes from the force. Moments later, the monster finally collapses. Makoto breathes heavily before letting out a long sigh of relief. Rinoa appears beside him and admits that she may have been a little stubborn by not giving him a direct answer earlier. Makoto laughs. He tells her that they are actually quite similar in that regard. Rinoa then explains that his shadow weapon is capable of taking many different forms, not just swords. Makoto smiles in relief. He says he is glad he was able to figure it out because of her hint. Then he jokingly points out that she could have simply told him sooner. Rinoa quickly responds that discovering things on his own is an important part of his growth. Makoto agrees. After all, it turned out to be a valuable experience. Rinoa then adds that unexpected situations can accelerate growth even faster. She even says that it would be nice if those situations happened more often. Makoto immediately disagrees and says he would rather avoid that kind of growth if possible. The two then leave the dungeon together. The following day, Makoto visits the Tokyo Hunter Association. An assistant repeatedly bows her head and apologizes for the mistake involving the dungeon's rank. Makoto simply tells her not to worry. Despite everything that happened, he still learned a lot from the experience. The assistant thanks him and asks him to confirm his reward payment. Makoto checks the amount. Then he freezes. 1,500,000 yen. The assistant explains that this is the reward for solo clearing a D-rank dungeon. She happily tells him that she hopes to work with him again in the future. For the first time, she even addresses him as Mr. Hunter. Hearing those words puts a smile on his face. After leaving the building, Makoto tells Rinoa that they should finally buy flowers for their apartment. Rinoa happily agrees. Makoto smiles, knowing he can now easily afford a beautiful bouquet. Suddenly, he senses a familiar presence nearby. A voice calls out his name. He turns around and immediately recognizes the person. It is Ryuka Kazane, his childhood friend. She greets him with a bright smile and asks how he has been doing. Makoto tells her that he finally managed to form a pact with the divine spirit and has been working hard ever since. Kazane's eyes widen with excitement. She warmly congratulates him and says she always believed he could do it. Meanwhile, people nearby begin whispering among themselves. They are shocked that someone as talented as Ryuka Kazane is talking to someone they once mocked as a wannabe hunter. Makoto awkwardly scratches the back of his neck. At the same time, Rinoa becomes curious. Makoto quietly explains that Kazane is his childhood friend and one of the top hunters with incredible potential. However, there is one thing he remembers very clearly about her. Her hatred for demons is stronger than anyone else's. Knowing that, he cannot help but wonder how their next encounter will truly unfold. Kazane has been part of Makoto's life for as long as he can remember. The two grew up side by side, sharing countless memories and adventures together. Even as they got older, their bond never really faded, but everything changed the day demons invaded Earth. Cities were thrown into chaos as demons rampaged everywhere without mercy. During that disaster, Kazane was running alongside her older brother while a group of demons chased after them. Then her brother noticed something terrifying. One of the demons had managed to scratch him. Realizing the danger, he immediately made a decision. He turned around and told Kazane to keep running. Kazane hesitated because she wanted to stay with him, but her brother refused. He told her that no matter what happened, she had to survive. Before they could say anything else, another demon attacked. Her brother desperately tried to defend himself. However, the monster's strength was far beyond anything a human could handle. Kazane could only stand there in horror as her brother was crushed right before her eyes. That traumatic memory stayed with her forever. Fast forward to 2 years ago. Around the same time, both Makoto and Kazan received their sacred stones. Back then, Makoto apologized to her. Even though they had promised to become hunters and fight together, his divine spirit still hadn't appeared. Because of that, he felt he could no longer keep his promise. Kazane quietly accepted his words. However, she also admitted that she could not wait forever. She eventually joined the Hunter Association and continued moving forward without him. Now, in the present day, the two sit together inside a bright and cozy cafe. The peaceful atmosphere feels completely different from the tragedies both of them have experienced. Kazan happily tells him that the parfait there is one of the best around. She also congratulates him for solo clearing a D-rank dungeon shortly after forming his pact. Makoto laughs and reminds her that he is technically still an F-rank hunter. Kazane immediately brushes it off. According to her, it is still an impressive achievement, and she says he is finally starting to live up to his potential. After a while, curiosity appears on her face. She asks him about his divine spirit. Makoto instantly freezes. He has absolutely no idea how to answer that question. Inside his mind, Rinoa quietly suggests appearing in person. Makoto immediately shuts that idea down, knowing it would only create problems. Thinking quickly, he tells Kazane that his divine spirit is simply very shy. Because of that, introducing her to other people would be awkward. Kazane tilts her head in confusion. She asks whether divine spirits can even be shy. At the same time, Rinoa grumbles to herself, insisting that she is not shy at all. Makoto quietly tells her to calm down because the situation is complicated. Then Kazane decides to go first. She raises her sacred stone and says she will introduce her own spirit. A soft light appears. Moments later, her upper-rank divine spirit materializes. It is Wave, the wind spirit. Wave politely bows toward Makoto and greets him. Makoto cannot help but feel surprised. The spirit's calm and elegant demeanor immediately stands out. After that, Kazane asks him another question. Is he planning to take a rank reassessment soon? Makoto explains that the next assessment date is still some time away. So Kazane encourages him to keep training so that he will get stronger. Then she proposes something unexpected. She wants the two of them to challenge a C-rank dungeon together. Makoto looks surprised. He tells her that their strength difference is still huge and that he would probably only slow her down. On top of that, he is still worried that Rinoa's identity could be exposed. Kazane simply smiles. She reminds him that when they were children, he was always the one leading her around. Now, she says, it is her turn to guide him. Her warm smile slowly erases his hesitation. Eventually, Makoto agrees. He remembers the promise they once made to fight together. Deep down, he is still worried about the risks involved. However, he also realizes that this is an opportunity to become stronger, an opportunity he cannot afford to miss. But more than anything, he is happy that he can finally fight side by side with her. Kazane lights up with happiness. Meanwhile, inside the Tokyo Hunter Association headquarters, a meeting is underway. High-ranking officials have gathered to discuss a serious problem. The topic is the Majin. One official explains that these beings possess intelligence comparable to humans and strength that is at least A rank. Until recently, they remained hidden. However, several hunters have now fallen victim to them. The official admits that their power is overwhelming. Surviving an encounter with them feels almost impossible. Kamuro, the president of the Japanese Hunter Association, quietly listens. Then he laughs and says that if he were younger, he would have hunted them personally. Mishima, the chief of gate management, immediately scolds him. She says this is not the time for jokes. According to her data, all dungeon gates have been properly cleared. Yet survivors continue reporting that the Majin only appear after the dungeon bosses are defeated. Another official confirms that detail. Someone else asks what purpose they could possibly have if they appear only after battles are already over. At that moment, the meeting room doors open. Amagi casually walks in and asks whether the meeting has started already. Mishima immediately complains about his late arrival. Amagi simply laughs and tells her that an angry expression does not suit someone as beautiful as her. That comment earns him an annoyed reaction. After hearing the entire report, Amagi says he might have an idea about what is happening. Mishima instantly warns him not to make up stories again. Amagi confidently tells her to leave everything to him because he has plenty of free time anyway. Kamuro smiles and approves the idea. He trusts Amagi's instincts. As Amagi leaves the room, he begins thinking about Makoto. Deep down, he suspects that his earlier prediction about the young hunter may have been correct. Later that day, Makoto and Kazane arrive at an abandoned building. In front of them stands a glowing C-rank dungeon gate. Kazane asks if he is nervous. Makoto honestly admits that he is. The demons inside are much stronger than anything he has faced before. At the same time, he remains worried about Rinoa being discovered. Kazane notices his uneasiness. She lightly taps his chest and reassures him that she will be there to support him. And no matter what happens, she will protect him. Makoto smiles and thanks her. Still, he says that he wants to prove that he is not here just to be protected. The two of them then step through the gate together. Immediately, thick demonic energy fills the air. Ahead of them stand two C-rank demons. Makoto summons his shadow weapon, intending to assess the situation first. But before he can move, A strong gust of wind rushes past him. Kazane is already charging forward. Her glowing spear pierces straight through one demon's head, destroying it in a single attack. Makoto stares in amazement. At the same time, Kazane's expression becomes much colder. She firmly declares that every demon must be eliminated. The hatred behind her words is stronger than before, almost overwhelming. Then she suddenly turns toward Makoto. Her eyes narrow. She says she senses another demonic presence nearby. Looking directly at him, she asks where it is coming from. A wave of panic instantly rushes through Makoto. He realizes that Kazane may have detected Renoa's energy from the very beginning. Makoto immediately dismisses his shadow weapon, allowing the dark energy around him to disappear. Kazane carefully scans the surroundings and says that she thought one of the demons might have escaped. Even so, she reminds him that the demonic energy she sensed earlier was definitely real and tells him to remain cautious. Makoto nods. At the same time, he silently realizes something important. Kazane is probably extremely sensitive to demonic energy and may have detected traces of the shadow power he uses. Renoa quietly confirms his suspicion. She tells him that Kazane's hatred toward demons is much stronger than he realizes. Makoto sighs internally. He truly wants to tell Kazane everything, but after witnessing her reaction earlier, he decides that now isn't the right moment. The guilt weighing on his chest only grows heavier as they continue deeper into the dungeon. Soon they reach the middle section. Without warning, a large group of demons pours out from the darkness. Kazane immediately springs into action. Wind energy surrounds her body as she launches forward, kicking the nearest demon before slicing it cleanly in half while it's still airborne. She hovers gracefully above the battlefield as powerful winds swirl around her. With another thrust, she pierces a demon through the chest before spinning her spear in a wide circle, cutting down several more enemies before they can even react. Makoto watches in amazement. He quickly realizes that her abilities even allow her to fly. Shaking off his surprise, he jumps into battle as well. He calls out to her, telling her to focus on the airborne enemies while he handles those on the ground. A demon lunges at him. Makoto blocks its claw with his elbow before slashing through its chest. Then he fires a burst of shadow energy that tears straight through another enemy. He can immediately tell these demons are much stronger than the ones he previously fought. Fortunately, he has grown stronger too. Suddenly, he changes his weapon. His sword transforms into a gun. Without hesitation, he begins firing shadow bullets that blast enormous holes through the demons' bodies. Kazane notices immediately. For a brief moment, she almost loses focus while staring at his ability. She comments that she has never seen a power quite like that before. Makoto simply changes his weapon back into a sword and continues fighting. Before long, every demon has been defeated. The middle section of the dungeon finally falls silent. Kazane lands gently and rests her spear on her shoulder. With a smile, she tells him that he is doing far better than she expected against C-rank demons. Makoto thanks her while trying not to sound too proud of himself. Then Kazane mentions something else. Earlier, she sensed a strange demonic energy coming out from him too, but now she sensed it has disappeared, so perhaps she was mistaken. Makoto awkwardly agrees while secretly feeling relieved. Inside his mind, Renoa quietly asks him a question. Does he intend to hide the truth forever? That single question sends him into deep thought. On one hand, Renoa is not an ordinary demon. She has become a trustworthy partner. Maybe Kazane would understand if he explained everything. On the other hand, Kazane's hatred for demons runs incredibly deep. The conflict leaves him uncertain as he quietly clenches his fists. Eventually, they arrive at the deepest part of the dungeon. Kazane points at the massive stone doors standing before them. This has to be the boss room. She asks if he is ready. Makoto nervously says yes, even though his heart is beating wildly. Kazane smirks and guesses that he's nervous because this is a C-rank boss after all. Makoto admits she's right. Before he can continue, she interrupts him with a confident smile. She raises her fist toward him and says that he isn't alone anymore. Together, they can overcome anything. Makoto quietly resolves to tell her the truth after defeating the boss. Smiling, he bumps his fist against hers and thanks her. Then the two of them push open the giant doors and walk inside together. The atmosphere instantly changes. Standing before them is a gigantic cyclops. Its single glowing eye stares directly at them. Makoto immediately feels the overwhelming pressure pouring from its body. Kazane wastes no time. Activating her wind mantle again, she shouts that every demon will meet the same fate. Then she charges forward. The Cyclops lifts its enormous wooden hammer, but before it can swing, Makoto activates Shadow Bind. Dark chains wrap around its weapon long enough for Kazane to strike directly into its stomach. The monster roars in anger. With brute force, it tears itself free and wildly swings its hammer. Both of them quickly dive out of the way, saving their own asses. After regrouping, they attack again. Their movements naturally synchronize, almost as if they can predict each other's actions. They attack from opposite sides while repeatedly landing clean hits. The entire room trembles from the force of their assault. Kazane shifts her focus to its legs. At the same time, Makoto transforms his weapon into a scythe. Together, they target both knees. The Cyclops stumbles and lets out another furious roar and trying to strike Kazane, who is in front of her. But Makoto immediately activates Shadowbind again, stopping it and holding the Cyclops in one place. He then tells Kazane to finish it. She nods and thanks him. Then she unleashes her divine skill, Wind Shower. Powerful winds explode outward like a miniature tornado and blast the Cyclops backward. When the dust settles, its body dissolves into dark mist. Silence returns to the room. Makoto just stares at her incredible display of her power and calls her amazing. With that, Kazane runs towards him with a grin as she gestures for a loud hand slap, which sounded really nice. She then comments that their teamwork felt surprisingly natural. Makoto agrees. But deep down, he knows there is still something important left to do. Wave appears beside them and praises both of them for their excellent coordination. Kazane laughs and says that years of friendship are finally paying off. Together, they feel unstoppable. However, Makoto slowly steps closer to her. His smile fades slightly. There is something he needs to say. His voice trembles as he removes his glove and reaches toward his sacred stone. He finally decides to reveal Renoa's existence. But before he can explain anything, a loud crack suddenly echoes throughout the room. Both of them immediately turn toward the source. A dark gate begins forming in midair. Black sparks scatter across the ground. Then a footstep through, followed by a clawed hand. A humanoid demon slowly emerges while wearing a huge grin. Its eyes lock onto Makoto. Then, with amusement in its voice, it says that it has finally found him. The atmosphere instantly grows heavy once more. Makoto's heart sinks. He immediately realizes something. Their real battle is only beginning. The demon slowly walks forward with a grin so wide it almost looks unnatural. Dark energy pours from his body, making the entire room feel suffocating. Makoto can barely catch his breath. His legs begin trembling as he instinctively realizes something. This enemy is completely different from every demon he has fought before. Standing nearby, Kazane notices it as well. She immediately moves in front of Makoto and asks if this creature is one of the Meijin. The demon laughs loudly, causing the air itself to vibrate. Stating that she knows quite a bit of info, doesn't she? Then he introduces himself as a Majin and his name is Grom. Kazane quietly mutters that the rumors were true. Without wasting another second, she tells Makoto that fighting him head-on would be suicide. According to her, they would lose almost instantly. She then tells him something unexpected. She will hold him off while he escapes. Makoto immediately tries to object. However, the tone of her voice stops him. It is exactly the same tone she used when talking about her brother's final moments. She tells him that all that matters is his survival. Before he can stop her, she is already moving forward. Powerful winds explode around her as she charges toward Grom. Her spear cuts through the air at incredible speed. Each attack carries tremendous force, yet Grom simply sidesteps them with almost no effort. With a smirk, he comments that she is moving in slow motion. His mockery only fuels her anger. Kazane pushes herself even harder. Her wind energy grows stronger as she relentlessly attacks. Still, Grom effortlessly avoids every strike. It is almost as though he is casually walking through a storm. Then, during one of her attacks, he catches her spear. Pulling her toward him, he calmly says that he has her now. Kazane barely escapes as his claws tear through the air where her neck had been moments earlier. Immediately afterward, she calls out to Wave. A burst of green light appears. Their powers merge together. Then they unleash their strongest attack, Milestone. A massive storm erupts throughout the room. Violent winds roar in every direction. Makoto barely manages to shield himself with his shadow weapon. Once everything settles down, Grom is still standing there, completely unharmed. He chuckles and says that her strongest technique feels no different from a pleasant summer breeze. Kazane grits her teeth. Anger burns inside her eyes. Grom smiles as he watches her reaction. Then he suddenly states that Kazane seems to have a pretty strong grudge against demons. Kazane agrees, stating that she will kill every last demon there is. Grom laughs at her statement, saying, "Does she really not know about Makoto, who has been by her side the whole time?" Confused, she demands an explanation. Grom points directly at Makoto. With a twisted grin, he says that Makoto is the person she should really be questioning. Then he reveals the truth. Makoto formed a pact with a demon. Everything suddenly feels frozen. Kazane stares at him in disbelief. Immediately, she denies it. Grom simply keeps smiling. Her voice trembles as she insists Makoto would never betray humanity, but her confidence begins to crumble when Makoto remains silent. She turns toward him and desperately asks him to deny it. Makoto's heart pounds loudly. He finally understands that he can no longer hide the truth. Slowly, he removes his gloves. Then he calls Rinoa's name. A bright light bursts from the sacred stone. Rinoa appears beside him. Her presence is gentle, yet unmistakably demonic. Kazane instinctively steps backward. The truth hits her all at once. Makoto quickly tries to explain that Rinoa is different from ordinary demons, but Kazane's emotions explode. She raises her spear and yells that his pact goes against everything they have fought for. Makoto desperately asks her to listen. However, she is no longer paying attention. Her voice shakes with anger and disappointment, stating that she can no longer trust him anymore. Then she suddenly charges towards Grom with a spear in her hand, declaring that she will eliminate him first. However, Grom casually dodges. Before she can react, he grabs her by the neck. Her body rises into the air as she struggles to breathe, while Grom calls her an annoying bitch. He raises his claws, preparing to finish her. But at that exact moment, a shadow chain lashes toward him, saving Kazane's life. Makoto shouts for him to stop. Grom glances at the chain, laughs, and tears it apart with a single movement. He says that Makoto is finally joining the fight. Then he throws Kazane aside like she weighs nothing. Her body flies across the room. Makoto immediately rushes forward and catches her before she crashes into the wall. He notices that Kazane has lost her consciousness, so he gently lays her down and quietly promises that he will fix everything. Meanwhile, Grom turns his attention toward Rinoa. His expression changes slightly. Recognizing her, he addresses her as a fallen angel. Rinoa's expression instantly turns cold. She says she never wanted to see nor hear that stupid voice of him again. Makoto looks between them in confusion and asks if they know each other. Rinoa explains the situation. After she fell from grace, the Majin tried to recruit her. Thankfully, she escaped before they could succeed. Makoto clenches his jaw after hearing that. Grom simply shrugs. According to him, she is still just another future addition to their army. Rinoa immediately rejects that idea. She declares that she will never become one of them. To her, demons will always remain enemies. Grom bursts into laughter. Then he asks an unsettling question. Doesn't she want revenge against the divine spirits who abandoned her? Those words strike deeply. Rinoa visibly flinches, telling him to shut that hole in his face. Grom, however, continues speaking. If she joins them, she can destroy anyone she wants. Humans, demons, divine spirits, everyone. According to him, that is true freedom. Rinoa remains silent. Old wounds begin resurfacing. Her hands tremble as tears starts forming in her eyes. Seeing this, Makoto immediately steps in front of her. A shadow blade forms in his hand. His eyes lock onto Grom. Then he says something that catches everyone off guard. Rinoa is different from them all, and she is nothing like him. Grom raises an eyebrow, asking him what does he mean by different. Makoto continues, if being a demon means hurting others for enjoyment, then Rinoa is the complete opposite. She is kind, she is brave, and she always puts others before herself. But more than anything else, she is his partner, the person who has been beside him through every challenge. Rinoa stares at him in silence. Her trembling hands slowly become steady again. A faint light returns to her eyes while she gently calls out his name. Grom's smile twists into disgust. He calls it pathetic and says emotions only make humans weak. Besides, he only came here because he was bored and not to listen to all that emotional crap. Then he declares that he will destroy both their bond and their weakness together, so make sure to entertain him with their puny strength as much as possible. Makoto tightens his grip on his weapon. Shadows swirl around him. He firmly says that he will never back down. If protecting Rinoa makes him a fool, then he will proudly accept that title. Rinoa steps beside him. Her wings spread wide as her determination returns. Grom stretches his body as if he has just woken up from a peaceful nap. wearing a smug smile across his face. Rinoa immediately tells Makoto that defeating him is impossible. However, she points out one thing that might work in their favor. Grom is extremely overconfident, and if they can exploit that, she can create an opportunity to escape because according to her, escaping is their only realistic option. But before she can finish explaining, Grom suddenly bursts forward. His speed is so overwhelming that his body almost disappears from sight. Makoto barely manages to raise his sword in time. Then, in an instant, Grom vanishes and reappears behind him. A powerful kick slams into Makoto's body, sending him crashing straight into a wall. He coughs violently from the impact. Meanwhile, Grom casually walks toward him as though he is taking a leisurely stroll, clearly enjoying himself. Makoto quickly reacts. He activates Shadowbind, wrapping chains around Grom's arm and leg. Immediately afterward, he transforms his weapon into a gun and fires several shadow bullets. Grom simply breaks free without effort. Then, to Makoto's shock, he catches the bullets in midair before casually dropping them onto the ground. With a teasing grin, he says it would have been more entertaining if he had thrown them back instead. Then he mocks Makoto, asking whether he has already run out of ideas. That single comment infuriates Makoto because he finally realizes the truth. Grom has been playing with him this entire time. Meanwhile, Kazane slowly regains consciousness. At first, her vision is blurry, but then she sees Makoto. His body is bruised, covered in injuries, yet he is still fighting the monster head-on. Panic immediately overwhelms her. As she tries to get up to help Makoto, she notices Rinoa standing behind him, supporting him. Her heart aches seeing how badly hurt he is. But what truly leaves her speechless is the fact that he formed a pact with a demon. Gripping his coat tightly, confusion floods her mind as she wonders how everything reached this point and now she can't trust anyone anymore. Suddenly, Grom attacks again. He drives another brutal kick into Makoto's side. Then another one crashes into his stomach. Grom loudly declares that Makoto is weak and that all his efforts are meaningless. Makoto groans in pain. Even so, he forces himself back onto his feet. His entire body trembles, and his breathing is heavy, but he refuses to stay down. He openly admits that he is weak. He knows he cannot match Grom's power. Even so, he refuses to give up. Though his voice shakes, his determination never wavers. Hearing those words causes Kazane to freeze. A memory suddenly resurfaces. It takes her back to a week after her brother died. Back then, Makoto quietly entered her room. He told her that her mother was worried because she had not eaten for several days. At the time, Kazane said nothing mattered anymore. She felt there was no point in continuing forward. Makoto walked over and gently patted her back. Then he told her not to give up, because the moment she did, she would truly lose everything. He confessed that he once experienced the same despair after losing his parents, but he eventually learned something important. The people who survive still have a future ahead of them. The only way to discover that future is to keep moving forward. So that's why they must never give up. They have to look forward and live. Remembering those words brings tears to her eyes. After all, Makoto was the one who gave her strength during her darkest moment, and he is the reason she was able to look forward again. Returning to the present, Kazane watches him struggle once again. He attempts to block Grom's next attack but is completely overpowered and thrown away. Grom mocks him, saying determination alone will never save him. Still, despite his bruised body and trembling hands, Makoto rises yet again. He glares up at Grom with the same stubborn determination he has always possessed, saying, "Not yet." Kazane grips her coat even tighter. Then she finally understands something. This is who Makoto has always been. Someone honest with others. Someone strong-willed no matter how many times he falls. Even if he formed a pact with a demon, his heart has never changed. Nothing has changed. Finally, she screams at him not to give up. Her voice cuts through the chaos surrounding them. Makoto glances back. The small but confident smile on her face immediately reaches him. She still believes in him. That realization encourages him. He smiles back at her. But at that exact moment, Grom charges once again, warning him not to lose focus. This time, Makoto meets the attack directly. He blocks it with his sword. To Grom's surprise, his strength has suddenly increased. The two lock eyes as sparks fly between their weapons. For a brief moment, Makoto thinks about Kazane saying that he has hurt her by breaking her trust, and yet she once again trusted him. and she is even pushing him forward by believing in him. That's why he can't die here, not now, so he pushes back harder than before. Then he leaps into the air to avoid another strike. Swinging his sword in one clean motion, he silently promises himself that he cannot fall here and they are going to live and make it back alive from here. The blade whistles through the air. Grom casually tilts his head to dodge. Even so, the edge of the sword manages to graze his face. A thin line of blood appears on his cheek before droplets fall to the ground. For a brief moment, silence takes over the battlefield. Makoto lands and steps backward. His breathing is rough, but steady. Meanwhile, Grom slowly licks the blood from his face while smiling. Rather than becoming angry, he actually seems amused. He says the fight has gone on long enough. Then the atmosphere suddenly changes. Dark energy begins gathering around him. A massive storm of black magic forms, causing the earth itself to tremble. He calls it a farewell gift for their journey into the afterlife. Even Kazane and Rinoa can feel the crushing pressure weighing down on their bodies. Makoto slightly trembles as he struggles to comprehend how one being can possess so much power. Then Grom turns toward Rinoa. He tells her to come back to his side if she wants her friends to survive. He says her obedience might save them. At the same time, he makes it clear that Makoto's life is nearly over. Rinoa looks at Makoto. Despite all his pain, he remains standing and calmly nods at her, encouraging her to stay strong. She turns back toward Grom. Then she firmly declares that she will never submit to a demon. Immediately, Grom's smile disappears. He announces that this will be their end. Then he unleashes his attack, Doom of the Underworld. A gigantic wave of dark energy rushes toward them. For a brief moment, despair fills the battlefield. Nothing can be heard except the roar of the overwhelming darkness. Even Makoto feels his resolve begin to waver. Then suddenly, a bright yellow light erupts between them. A massive opening appears within the light itself and completely swallows Grom's attack. Within seconds, every trace of the darkness vanishes. Then, just as suddenly as it appeared, the light disappears. Silence returns once again. Everyone is frozen. Even Grom stares ahead in disbelief. Makoto quickly asks what just happened. Before he can react further, he feels a hand gently but firmly rest on his shoulder. Then a voice speaks. It tells Grom that he will not be allowed to destroy the buds of a bright future. Makoto immediately turns around. Standing behind him is a tall and confident man whose presence alone radiates authority. The stranger shifts his attention toward Grom before introducing himself. His name is Amagi. Then, with a calm smile, he asks Grom if he still wants someone to play with. Yugo tells Makoto that he has done enough and should leave everything else to him. Then he calmly steps forward. Almost instantly, the atmosphere changes. A tremendous amount of pressure fills the area, making Makoto realize just how terrifying an S-rank hunter truly is. Even standing nearby is enough to feel overwhelmed. Grom acknowledges Yugo's strength, but his voice remains full of arrogance. Meanwhile, Yugo casually throws away his drink by tossing it into the portal as if he is getting rid of something unpleasant. Then, without hesitation, he boldly says that he is actually stronger than Grom. The comment is clearly meant to provoke him, and it works immediately. Grom's expression darkens with anger. Yugo smiles and says he still has to repay him for injuring one of his junior hunters. Then he reveals his special class divine spirit, Nova. At that moment, the tension on the battlefield skyrockets. Grom lowers his stance and grins. He asks whether Yugo's confidence is genuine or if he is simply bluffing. Then he suddenly charges forward. His punch carries enough force to destroy almost anything in its path, but Yugo catches it effortlessly. He does not even blink. With a playful smirk, he tells Grom not to touch his face because it is one of his important aspects for doing business. Then he casually throws him away, as if he weighs nothing at all. Before Grom even reaches the ground, a spatial rift opens behind him. The portal sucks him in before instantly spitting him back out directly in front of Yugo. Already waiting for him, Yugo greets him with a punch straight to the stomach. The impact sends Grom flying into a wall. The force is so powerful that even the dungeon shakes. Seeing this, Makoto gets confused and asks, isn't only divine power supposed to be effective against demons, not physical power? Rinoa agrees and explains that to be precise, it's the divine power of divine spirits that is effective. However, Yugo has wrapped himself with that divine power, and she admits that Yugo's divine power is far beyond ordinary standards, because that much divine power and strength is beyond abnormal. Furious, Grom gathers dark energy and launches a massive attack toward Yugo. Yugo remains completely still. Then he releases his ability, Sky Piercer. The attack absorbs and neutralizes Grom's energy before it can even explode. The dark energy becomes trapped and compressed inside the ability itself. Moments later, it detonates internally. The explosion destroys one of Grom's arms. Makoto watches in disbelief. He finally understands that Yugo is far more than simply powerful. His strength exists on an entirely different level. Yugo laughs and says that Grom barely avoided serious damage. Then he casually suggests that he should stop holding back and use his full power. That only makes Grom even angrier. But before the battle can continue, another demon suddenly appears. The newcomer stops Grom from attacking again. Everyone immediately turns their attention toward him. Grom recognizes him right away. His name is Fine. Confused, Grom demands to know why he is there. Fine calmly warns him that using his power in his current state will only lead to his destruction. Then he shifts his attention toward Yugo, telling him that if the two of them fought seriously right now, neither side would achieve an easy victory or come out unharmed. Yugo nods and admits that Fine looks formidable. Fine then declares the battle a draw and orders Grom to retreat. Grom immediately protests. He refuses to back down. However, a single glare from Fine silences him. Reluctantly, Grom obeys. Before leaving through the gate, he threatens everyone, promising that he will return and kill everyone. Then both demons disappear. An uneasy silence takes over the dungeon. Everyone simply stands there, processing everything that just happened. Eventually, Yugo breaks the silence by asking if the demons are truly gone now. Makoto steps forward and bows his head. He sincerely thanks Yugo for saving them. Yugo casually brushes it aside and says they can continue talking while heading back. Later, while walking together, Makoto nervously asks him something. Did he always suspect that he had made a pact with a demon? Yugo takes another sip of his drink before answering. He says yes. According to him, that connection was exactly why Grom had been following Makoto in the first place. Then Yugo turns toward Makoto and Kazane. With a grin, he asks whether the two of them have finally made up. Both of them instantly freeze. Kazane says that Makoto himself has not changed. However, she glances at Rinoa and admits that trusting her is an entirely different issue. Rinoa simply shrugs. She says Kazane is free to believe whatever she wants. Immediately, the atmosphere becomes awkward. Makoto panics and tries to calm both of them down. Yugo quietly watches the exchange before speaking up. He says that Rinoa, as someone who was once a spirit and now possesses characteristics close to a demon, may become extremely important in the future. Then he reassures Makoto. He tells him that he accepts both him and Rinoa as part of humanity. Those words immediately ease Makoto's worries. He feels grateful for Yugo's understanding. Filled with determination, Makoto suddenly runs ahead. He loudly declares that he will become stronger than he is now. His sudden enthusiasm catches everyone by surprise. Yugo smiles. Then he dashes past Makoto with incredible speed and says that he looks forward to fighting beside him someday. Later, on the rooftop of a skyscraper, a plane arrives to pick up Yugo after he finishes submitting his report. He informs Kamuro that the demon threat will likely remain quiet for the time being. Kamuro thanks him and says that trusting him was the correct decision. Then he brings up another problem. A former A-rank hunter named Himuro Yusei has gone missing. Yugo immediately remembers him as the hunter who killed several hunters after being fired as a hunter for misconduct. Kamuro agrees and explains that Yusei was being held in custody, but somehow he vanished without a trace. Yugo sighs. The entire situation is becoming complicated. However, he says he cannot personally handle it right now because he has other responsibilities. Instead, he promises to recommend 2 capable hunters and send their information later. Kamuro agrees and says he will review their profiles soon. After ending the call, Kamuro turns toward another man sitting nearby. He apologizes for making him wait and asks him to begin. The man introduces himself as Uesugi Ugi. He explains that he is both an A-rank hunter and the former disciple of Himuro Yusei. Then he firmly states his goal. He intends to stop Yusei once and for all. With that declaration, the atmosphere grows serious once again. Years earlier, Wasugi Uji was training under his master, Himuro Yusei, a man famous for being both incredibly talented and incredibly troublesome. During one of their conversations, Uji confidently says that he wants to become the greatest hunter possible and that he plans to take his responsibilities seriously. Yusei immediately dismisses the idea. He says Uji is far too rigid and that he has no interest in having a boring disciple. Then he playfully jabs him in the back and tells him to relax and enjoy being a hunter because not everyone gets the opportunity. Uji insists that a hunter's responsibilities should always come first. However, Yusei interrupts him. He says that if Uji wants to remain his student, he needs to stop chasing perfection and loosen up a little. Instead of becoming a puppet controlled by the Hunter Association, he should create his own path. Yusei even calls the association useless. Eventually, Uji nods but admits that he could never become someone like Yusei. That immediately makes Yusei grin. He jokingly asks if Uji is making fun of him before laughing loudly as though he just won an argument. Back in the present, Makoto and Kazane are jogging around a pond together. Nearby, a man sitting on a bench watches them and wonders if they are training for some major competition. As they continue running, Kazane brings up the flower shop Makoto visited after their dungeon expedition. Makoto explains that he went there because Rinoa likes beautiful things. He also adds that her presence somehow makes their room feel brighter. Meanwhile, another person nearby wonders how many laps they have already completed because they seem to have been running forever. Kazane then asks what other things Rinoa likes besides flowers. Makoto hesitates for a moment before saying that she should ask Rinoa directly. Rinoa, having overheard the conversation, calmly says that she does not have any particular likes. Kazane immediately tells her that she should try to be more friendly since they are now on the same team. Rinoa quickly reminds her that Kazane was the one who openly said she did not trust her. She casually brushes the comment aside. Frustrated, Kazane raises her voice and says she dislikes Rinoa's attitude. Makoto quickly steps in and tries to calm both of them down. Unfortunately, they both tell him to stay out of it. Makoto is left standing there awkwardly while the two continue bickering. As they keep jogging, they overhear a couple having a conversation. The woman sounds worried while discussing a criminal hunter who recently escaped from prison. Her boyfriend suggests that they should simply go home instead. Makoto turns toward Kazane and asks if she knows anything about it. She explains that the escapee is Himuro Yusei, a former A-rank hunter who was known for his incredible abilities. She also wonders what could have pushed someone like him down the path of becoming a criminal. Suddenly, Makoto's phone vibrates. At the exact same time, Kazane's phone also receives a notification. Both of them check their devices and discover an emergency summons from the Hunter Association. Kazane points out that they have both been called in. Makoto wonders what is going on because he could see on the mail that it is a recommendation from Yugo. Kazane simply says they should head there and find out for themselves. Not long afterward, they arrive at the Tokyo Hunter Association headquarters. They are directed toward conference room number 5. Once inside, a man greets them and introduces himself as Hayashi from the Abnormal Measures Division. He thanks them for responding so quickly. Then he explains that based on Yugo's recommendation, the two of them have been selected to assist in the search for Himuro Yusei. Both Makoto and Kazane are shocked. They clearly were not expecting such an important assignment. Hayashi continues explaining the situation. Although the police are conducting their own investigation, the Hunter Association also needs to act immediately. According to current information, Yusei may still be somewhere near the gate where he escaped. Their mission is to investigate the surrounding area. Makoto raises a concern, mentioning how dangerous that sounds. After all, the opponent is a former A-rank. Hayashi reassures him right away. He says they will not be handling the mission alone because an A-rank hunter will also be joining them. Moments later, the door opens. Kazane instantly freezes. Standing there is Wasugi Uji. He greets her and says that it has been a long time since they last met. Hayashi announces that their team is now complete. Then he excuses himself and tells them to review the documents before leaving the room. Kazane smiles and says that it really has been a while since they cleared a gate together. Uji quietly nods in response. Makoto stares at him in admiration. He remembers that Uji is considered the greatest prodigy of their generation and the only one to achieve A-rank status. Makoto introduces himself and says it is an honor to work with him. However, Uji does not shake his hand. Instead, he simply states that he was once Himuro Yusei's disciple and has no intention of teaming up with anyone. Both Makoto and Kazane are stunned by his response. Picking up a tablet, Uji says that finding Yusei is his personal responsibility. He bluntly calls them a distraction if they work together because he will take care of them as well. Kazane immediately argues that teamwork is extremely important. Uji dismisses the idea altogether. He says he does not need anyone's help before walking out of the room. Makoto quickly tries to stop him. He suggests that splitting their tasks would be more efficient. According to his idea, he and Kazane can handle any demons inside the gate while Uji focuses on finding Yusei. Uji pauses for a moment and gives him a cold stare. Still, Makoto continues speaking. He reminds him that they are hunters and cannot simply ignore the mission itself. Kazane agrees and says they will do their best to contribute. Uji lets out a sigh. He says they are free to do whatever they want, but makes it clear that he will continue working alone. Then he walks away, completely ignoring Makoto's request to coordinate. Makoto turns toward Kazane with concern written all over his face. Kazane tells him not to worry too much. For now, they should simply follow Uji and figure things out as they go. Later that night, an abandoned school sits in complete silence. Its protective barrier has already been destroyed. 3 middle school boys sneak inside while discussing their plans. One of them says they should claim the building as their territory. Another suggests dividing the floors among themselves. The boy wearing a cap comments that the school is far too large to control. As they continue exploring, one of them shines a flashlight into a classroom. Immediately, they notice sharp ice spikes covering the entire area. Confused, they wonder if a dungeon gate is nearby and question why everything is frozen. Suddenly, panic sets in. One of the boys stops responding. The others quickly turn around. To their horror, they discover that he has been frozen solid. Before they can react, the ice rapidly spreads toward them as well. Within moments, all of them become trapped. Then a shadowy figure emerges from behind the ice. With a single motion, he shatters it apart. The frozen boys break apart along with it. The man quietly complains about how troublesome it is to keep leaving bodies behind. Afterward, he turns toward a gate nearby and seals it shut using his ice powers. His eyes remain cold and emotionless. Then he says that he will take revenge on the Hunter Association because he believes his actions are justified. At last, his identity is revealed. It is Himuro Yusei, the former A-rank hunter.